you move. Good news, everyone. The TV we see onions have grown.
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Radio Mike, and this is the inside of my mind, and this is the inside of my mind again. And the reason I say that is because I am actually recording this podcast for the second time, because basically the software that I use to record this podcast is quite a sophisticated piece of software for audio processing and producing and stuff like that. And essentially, for some reason, which I know but I'm not going to say on this podcast, my version of the software for some reason tends to crash and not work sometimes. I'm not going to say why. I'm sure you can figure out why, but I'll put it this way. The software costs a lot of money, and I don't make that much money, so I have to find another way to get the software. And basically, I recorded this whole podcast on Monday, and then I was like, okay, I'll edit it on Wednesday. And then I came back to it on Wednesday, the software had crashed, and I cannot find the original audio of this podcast anywhere, which sucks, but shit happens, and this is the first time something like this has happened, so I just have to deal with it, and I'm re-recording it. But I remember coming off the back of the original, and I was like, oh, that could have been better, but I'm so busy this week, so I'll just leave it. So in some ways, it's a blessing in disguise, because so much has happened this week that I want to talk about. And I've been really well. And welcome to the podcast. If you're new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome. Fantastic to have you here. I really appreciate you being here. I love all of the listeners of the podcast. We are the radio family. We are the members of this podcast. And essentially, I've been super busy, but at the same time, I have felt exceptionally motivated and productive over the last few weeks. I'm doing so much. I'm pushing out a lot of content, which I love. I'm working on a lot of different projects, which is incredible. Primarily, we have now wrapped shooting our first music video for my band with Jack Post. We also had a drummer in the video, Matt O'Gorman, a mate of mine, who is also the drummer in the Australian rock band British India, who are quite a big band. This is one of their songs.
Summer, forgive me, it was just the other day. The look on your face was 1,000 miles away.
Matt's an absolute legend, and he came down to drum in the music video. And that's finished shooting. That single, the first single, will be out very soon, within the next 2 weeks. And I'm so excited to launch it because the videos come out incredible. Special thanks to my friend Angus Strachan, who shot and put together the video for us. And guys, I'm so excited for you to hear this music. Thanks for getting around it. A lot of people have commented saying they're excited to hear it. Super excited for you guys to hear it. And we start shooting the next music video for the second single, which will come out shortly after the first one, tomorrow, which involves a coffin and a bunch of other props, but I won't say too much about it here. But here is the first few seconds, which I think I have played on this podcast before, but here's the first few seconds of the second single for you guys only. It's been a super busy week. We are back recording Hamish and Andy podcasts every fortnight now, or every week, I think, for the rest of the year. I also potentially going to be joining a new radio show in a short-term role, which I'll talk to you a little bit about when I know more about it, but that's also exciting. Working on a bunch of podcasts. We have now recorded a massive back catalogue of Willosophy, which is a great podcast as well, and I'd love for you to check that out. Will begins filming his TV show for the ABC, Gruen, so we've done a back catalogue of episodes so that he doesn't have to do them while he's in Sydney filming his TV show. So yeah, it's been really good, but enough about me. Intern Mike, the resident intern of the podcast, he is here as usual, but he's not the only person in studio, and I will say that Editor Mike, the podcast editor, is away this week for reasons that I'll get into a little bit later. But Intern Mike, you're here as usual. How are you?
Yeah, hey Mike, I'm doing all right. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's next for my life.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I don't know, like I'm 14 and I'm just trying to figure out what's next.
Well, 15's next, and you just keep doing school, man.
Yeah, I know, but I'm asking the bigger questions about my life. You know, I don't know what I want to do.
That's right, man. Neither do I. No one does.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I just feel like I should have life worked out by now.
No, you definitely shouldn't, man. You're all good. Anyway, enough about you, because you've been on there for 10 seconds and you've already brought trash content to the show that I hate. But guys, let's flash back a little bit, because on this podcast, and he's in the room right now, we used to have a guy who was our production assistant, Ciggy Mike. And Ciggy Mike, while he was addicted to cigarettes, he's smiling at me, he became a valued member of the team, the production assistant on the show. And then Ciggy Mike, welcome back to the show, mate. He's here today. Why don't you tell us what happened after that? I want you to tell Ciggy Mike, the 20th century boy story, why you've been away for so long, introduce yourself to new listeners, and just tell us what you've been doing and where you've been.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. No, thanks for having me, guys. It is fuck, guys. It is so good to be back in this room. I tell you what, it's so fucking good to be back in this room. Like, I have missed this podcast so fucking much, and I'm so great. Like, the response to me coming back has just been fucking mental. It's been fucking mental, and I'm just fucking loving it. But, it's been a long journey for me on the podcast. So I just discovered the podcast, just flicking through my Spotify, just fucking discovered the podcast and started listening to it, wrote into Editor Mike, who was the editor on the podcast, and I just started sitting in, and then I just kind of became the production assistant, just like getting coffees and like just like doing other shit, any shit that needed to be done, I did.
Yeah, how was that actually different to intern, Mike? Like, how is the production assistant different to the intern?
Yeah, fuck, I don't even know, but anyway, shit hit the fan. So I go out with the boys one night. I'm just going out with the boys, having a bit of sniffy jiffy, a bit of nose candy, popping a bit of acid, popping a bit of pills, and I meet a chick out. One of the most gorgeous chicks I've ever met in my whole fucking life. And I go up to her, and I just think, I'm marrying this chick. I gotta marry her. And I got talking. Her name was Mary Ann. She was 60 years old. I was like, fuck. And I go up to her, and I just say, hey, you want Ciggy? And I offered her a Ciggy. We had a smoke together. Oh, by the way, does anyone want Ciggy? I'm going to smoke up after this. You guys want to have a Ciggy after the show? No, I'm all right. Thanks, man.
I'm all right, Ciggy Mike. I don't do Ciggies really much anymore.
All right, yeah, no worries. Anyway, so I have a Ciggy with Mary Ann. We go home. We fucking get it on. We had the best sex I've ever had in my whole life. She's 60 years old, so she was so experienced comparatively to anyone I've ever been with. And, fuck, turns out, I find out over time, Mary Ann was actually Editor Mike's wife, and she'd been cheating on Editor Mike with me, which fucked us all over. And I had no fucking idea. I swear to God, I had no fucking idea. And when I found out, I was like, fuck, and I called it off.
Well, you did have a bit of an idea. I mean, it was quite obvious. A lot of the listeners of this podcast figured out before you did that you were dating Editor Mike's wife, Mary Ann, now ex-wife, I suppose, and you must have known that when you realised that both you and Editor Mike's partners had the exact same name and were the exact same age and lived in the exact same area. Like, you must have known. Actually, I believe that happened on air on this podcast as well, when we all kind of caught wind of it. Can we try and track down some of that audio here?
Oh, is your wife's name Mary Ann, Editor Mike? That's fucking crazy. The girl I'm seeing is called Mary Ann. That's fucked, man. Who would have thought? Yeah, my wife's 60 as well, so that's a bit crazy. We're both seeing, a Mary Ann who's 60. Mate, fuck, Mike. I had no fucking idea. Don't fucking blame me for this shit. And I just called it off.
You didn't really call it off, because what happened after that?
Yeah, I'm like, well, I called it off, and then I couldn't call it off anymore. So I decided, what's best is if I leave the I'm stepping away from the podcast, right? I'm stepping away from this podcast. That's it. I'm walking away from it. I had to take some time out to let Editor Mike just realise, the pain that he's going through. I was also hurting because I felt like I'd fucking played a part in betraying a friend, Editor Mike.
Well, you did betray him, Ciggy Mike. You did betray him because you were a part of an affair that broke down his marriage. he has kids and grandkids. His grandson is intern Mike, and you've broken apart that. How do you feel about it, intern Mike?
Yeah, no, it's kind of fucked. I mean, Ciggy Mike just sort of came in and, like, ruined our whole family, like, so quickly. I'm so sick of all this drama in my family. Like, he just came in, had an affair with my grandma, ruined my grandpa's life and really upset him. I'm glad my grandpa's finally moving on.
Yeah, Editor Mike is moving on, to be fair, Ciggy Mike. He's now dating Siri. Oh, is Editor Mike dating Siri? That's fucking sick. Siri's such a great chick. I used to do shit with it. Actually, no, don't worry about that. No.
Wait, what were you saying?
No, don't worry. So anyway, me and Marianne, we escaped the podcast. We're getting out of your way. We go to Bali for 3 weeks, right? We have the best fucking time of my life. I swear to God, we have the best fucking time of my life. Drugs, fucking partying, full moon party, tats, drinks, cheap drinks, ladyboys, fucking... Bali is the best. We got to go for a Christmas trip or something sometime, guys. And anyway, we're flying back. On the way back to Melbourne, I do, as I said, I've said it on the podcast before when you called me on the phone a few months ago, I do a massive fart on the plane. Marianne breaks up with me there and there. That's it. I go home and I'm fucking wrecked. I feel like complete shit that this girl, who I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, fucked me over and broke up with me on the plane. Yeah, but I mean, how do you think Editor Mike felt? Like he was, probably hoping to grow old. They were growing old together and she's had an affair with you. Yeah, but fuck, I just felt shit. I'm at home every day, fucking depresso. And I'm just like smoking darts, smoking marijuana, fucking lying in the bath, Lying in the bath, Mike, every day.
Why were you lying in the bath?
Just lying in the bath, fucking crying. Just because I'm so fucking upset about what happened, I just had to lie in the bath and cry.
Why didn't you just lie in your bed and cry in bed and, like, pull the covers over you and, curl up in a ball and cry?
Mate, fuck, as if I'd cry. I'm a bloke, mate. Blokes don't fucking cry.
But you just said before that you cried.
No, mate, blokes don't fucking cry. I didn't cry. If I said I'd cry, I was fucking joking. Well, you did say, intern Mike, can you dig up the audio just before of Ciggy Mike saying he was crying?
I don't usually do any of the audio cutting, but since Editor Mike's away, I guess I could.
Thanks, man.
Alright, I think I've got it. Here it is.
What the fuck was that, intern Mike?
Oh, sorry, that was just some porn I was watching on my phone before. This is actually the audio, sorry.
Why were you lying in the bath?
Just lying in the bath, fucking crying. Intern Mike, remind me to never let you do that again. Please make sure we get that cut out of the podcast. Fucking hell. So, Ciggy Mike, you go to Bali with Marianne, Editor Mike's ex-wife. She breaks up with you on the plane. You come home and you're depressed. You're upset. Understandable, man, and sorry to hear that. You're crying in the bath. No, what the fuck? I wasn't fucking crying. Okay, whatever. Anyway, you're very upset and... What happens then? Like, why have you been gone for so long? Mate, I just needed fucking time myself. I was just so fucking upset. I could not bear it, and I didn't want to come back because I didn't want Editor Mike to feel weird. Like, I wanted to make sure he'd moved on.
Well, that's caring of you. I mean, he didn't come in today because he knew you were coming in, so I guess it's still kind of awkward between you in that sense.
Oh, fuck. I mean, I didn't want to ruin a friendship between me and Editor Mike.
Yeah. Hey, Ciggy Mike, I think when you first joined the show, your voice was a lot higher.
Like, I think you used to sound like this. I think, yeah, one Ciggy, you want fucking Ciggy. You used to sound a lot more like this. Now it sounds like you kind of it's almost like you've been away from the podcast for so long that you've kind of forgotten what you sound like, and you're kind of a weird cross between your original voice and Editor Mike's voice. I don't know, have you noticed that? Yeah, no, it's just like, people change though, mate. I think originally my voice was like based on like Dave Hughes, like, Hughesy, the Australian radio presenter. I think I was like kind of basing my voice on that.
I am pumped up. Not everything works out though. My ego gets battered all the time. Recently, a guy got a photo with me. I'm happy to take a photo. If I'm around, just say g'day, I'll get a photo with you. I'm always up for photos. I get recognised quite a bit and I love it.
Now, I think this is my voice now. I think I just kind of sound like this. Like, you guys want a Ciggy? Like, that's kind of me, Ciggy Mike.
All right, well, that's cool. I mean, you're right. Everyone does change. This podcast has changed a lot.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to, like, get back into my everyday life after coming back from the trip of a lifetime in Bali and, like, the breakup of a lifetime from Marianne. So I just get back into it. I go back to my carpentry work. I'm a carpenter by trade. And then I just go back to playing local footy. With the boys from work. We play for the Cranbourne Rovers. Just fucking got to get out there and kick the ball from time to time, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting at home and I'm in the bath and a picture of Marianne pops up on my Instagram and I just look at it
and I start to cry. No, I start to just get upset. And I just think to myself in my mind, I'm like, you know what, Ciggy Mike? This is me in my mind. I'm like, you know what, Ciggy Mike? Life's too short. Life's too fucking short to be worried about this shit. And I just get up, and like I said, I go back to play local footy. I have the game of my life. I kick 4 goals. Game of my life. 4 goals, 10 behinds. The boys fucking got around me. Had a few punch-ons with the guys from the other team, the Pakenham Lions, but, you know, those guys are a bit rough. We're rough too. We only really play the local footy for the punch-ons, you know.
You only play footy for the punch-ons? Wait. And also 4 goals was the game of your life? I mean, 4 goals isn't that many. Some players are kicking, 5 in a match, surely.
Yeah, I mean, the game of my life. Game of the season. Everyone said, like, Ciggy Mike, fucking glad you're back because, we would have been fucked if it wasn't for you. You're the best player in the whole league. And it's true, like, I probably am the best player in the whole league. Except for, like, Darren Johnston, who's playing for the Frankston Frangies. Like, he's not bad. But, yeah, I'm definitely better than him. Like, I'm more muscular than him. And, yeah. And then we all just sort of came off pitch and had a few ciggies. And I just thought to myself, Ciggy Mike, this is where you belong. On the footy pitch. Life's too fucking short to be worrying about some chick. And from that moment, I just moved on and I knew I was ready to come back.
Can I just ask, why do you guys, like, if you take your footy seriously, why do you all smoke after the game? Like, surely that messes with your cardio. Not many professional sports people smoke, especially when they're, like, in season.
Yeah, we're pretty good at footy, so we can sort of get away with it. Other players probably couldn't get away with it as much as we could, so we just have a cheeky dart after the match. But yeah, I just thought life's too fucking short. Had the after party because we're in the finals now. Had the after party because we qualified for the finals. Passed a few chicks down in the local footy club. Whatever. I don't even care. Went home with one. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Now, but I do have one question for you, and that's all great, and I'm glad you're back to, a position where you're comfortable coming in and chatting on the podcast. But what I did want to know, and we have to kind of get through this quick because there's a lot of other stuff to cover. What happened to Mary Ann? Because Edela Mike hasn't heard from her, and it seems like you haven't heard from her either. Intern Mike, she's your grandma. Have you heard from her?
No, like I said, like, my mum's freaking out because her parents were, like, 1 minute loved up and, like, the ideal parents, and then all of a sudden, my mum's mum has an affair with some guy that works on the hobby podcast that my grandpa does with us, and then she runs off to Bali for some kind of end-life crisis she's having to try and find herself in her 60s, and, like, just disappears after that, and no one has heard from her. Mum's been calling her. She's actually lodged as a missing person to the police because, Mum hasn't spoken to Grandma in so long, and, Grandpa's now dating a robot voice assistant on iPhones, Siri, which is also really fucked. I don't know, just, everything's just turning more and more upside down every day for my family, and it's actually all because of Ciggy Mike and this podcast. Like, if this podcast and Ciggy Mike didn't happen, my family would probably be more or less, like, alright at this point in time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I'm really sorry. Like, it is all my fault. It is all this podcast's fault that what happened in your family happened, and it's completely fucked. Ciggy Mike, have you heard from Mary Ann?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. The other week, I'm fucking lying in the bath. I'm just lying in the bath again. I'm just having a bubble bath. My phone starts ringing. You know that sound it makes, like.
Yeah, like your phone's vibrating because it's ringing.
Yeah, no, exactly that. That's exactly right, Mike. Phone starts ringing. I'm having a ciggy in the bath, and it's Mary Ann. But I look at it, and you know how before, get the audio if you want, Intern Mike.
Don't get the audio, Intern Mike.
Okay, whatever. But you know how before I said, well, I've moved on now, life's too short, all that stuff, like I went back to footy. I decided I'm not picking it up. I'm not fucking picking it up. I don't want to hear about it, right? She left a voicemail. I haven't listened to the voicemail yet.
Oh, wow. Do you reckon we should plug your phone in and listen to it on the podcast?
Yeah, whatever. I don't give a fuck. I mean, it's probably her just giving me a call saying how much she wants me back because of how good I was at being fucking boyfriend.
Well, I reckon we should listen to it on the podcast. Is that all right?
Yeah, whatever. But like I said, it's just going to be her wanting me back.
All right, we'll plug it in. Intern Mike, hit play whenever you can.
All right, here's the message from my grandma.
Oh, hello, Ciggy Mike. Oh, I understand why you didn't pick up the phone. It's been so long since we spoke. Look, I'm calling you because, well, after we landed in Melbourne, I did a lot of thinking. Look, Ciggy Mike, you're a fantastic man. You're an excellent lover, but it wasn't the fart that I broke up with you for. In reality, I realized on that flight home and after that trip to Bali that I'm simply still in love with my ex-husband, Editor Mike. I'm so sorry. After we landed in Melbourne, I booked a flight straight to Amsterdam. I've been doing a lot there, just finding myself, smoking a lot of marijuana and doing various other drugs, but all that being said, I know eventually I'll have to come back to Melbourne and face the truth. I need to go back to Editor Mike and tell him that I love him. I simply must. There are no other options. But I only hope he hasn't moved on with another woman. Oh, Ciggy Mike, you're such a lovely chap. You'll make a girl very happy one day. I'm so sorry that it couldn't work out between us. Call me back when you can, and tell Editor Mike that I still love him. Goodbye, Marianne.
Whoa, that was fucked.
Yeah, that was fucked. What the fuck? This is just I can't even wrap my head around what the fuck's going on with my grandma.
What the fuck? She broke up with me because she still fucking loves Ed and Mike. That's fucked.
Well, what do we do? Do we tell Editor Mike or do we just like kind of leave it? Like, I don't know. Now I feel weird because Editor Mike really seems to have moved on. He's moved out with Siri. Like, it really doesn't feel like the right thing to do to, get Marianne back to his life. What do you think, intern Mike?
Fuck Siri. I want my grandma and grandpa back together. I hate waiting around and, I hate all this bullshit that's happening in my family. Why does my family always have to have bad luck? I just want my grandma and grandpa back together so things can kind of go back to normal, I guess. I don't know.
All right, well, Ciggy Mike, like, how do you feel?
I just feel fucking betrayed. That's fucked. She told me she loved me. Now she fucking says she liked Ed and Mike the whole time. I gotta go outside and never see you.
No, just wait. We gotta work this out. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Guys, listeners, the radio family, what do we do? Do we tell Editor Mike that Marianne loves him and is coming back and she's currently just in Amsterdam?
Oh, fuck. I must say, all things aside, fucking sick she's in Amsterdam. Best place ever. Best drugs. Fucking legal 420 blazer. Marijuana 420 blazer hashtag. But, but still, I don't know. Radio family, let us know what we need to do.
Yeah. Well, you know what? All this is really messed up, and I think we need to just move on for now. That's like half the podcast has been about this. Ciggy Mike, thank you so much for being here. You're sticking around, yeah?
Yeah, no, I'll stick around. I'm just trying to make sense of all this shit in my mind.
Yeah, no, we all are. We're always trying to make sense of the inside of our minds. But guys, let's just quickly move on. There's a lot we have to cover still, and I want to start off with this.
One man, one podcast, the radio family, and one listener with a telecommunications company. $250. This is 20th Century Boys' quest for 1-800-GET FUCKED.
This is our quest for a phone number for this podcast. A bit of history of this. If you're new to the podcast, again, welcome. Radio Whitey, hey Radio Whitey, he is a long-time listener of the podcast and he owns a telecommunications company called You Connected. He put it to me that, hey, if you have a phone number for the podcast, I can set it up for you, a 1-800 number, and people can ring up and leave a voicemail and it will automatically send it to my email so I can put it in the podcast. Because we love all contributions to this show, whether they're via email, via social media, but we also love to have lots of voices on this show, so I want to get more voice messages on the show. Attach them to an email, but a phone number might help that. And I decided it would be cool to have a 1-800 number that's like 1-800-GET FUCKED. And Radio Harrison, welcome to the radio family, Radio Harrison, he suggested that because we have a 6-character limit, he suggested that it should be 1-800-GET FKD. 1-800-GET FUCKED. You guys can call it and leave a voice message. Radio Whitey was more than happy to accommodate for this, but he explained that it would cost $250 for a specialized or like a specific number, like 1-800-GET FUCKED. And also there would be like an $85 processing fee, which means somehow we had to raise $325. I then created a Kickstarter page that never got approved by Kickstarter. I received an email during this week that says, "Hi Michael J. Thanks for sharing your project with us. You're off to a great start, but there are a few tweaks you'll need to make before we can approve your project to launch. We need to apparently refocus the project, according to Kickstarter. Now, a lot of people have reached out and still want a way that they can donate money to 1-800-GET-FUCKED. And I posted about this rejection, the non-approval of the project in the Facebook group for this podcast, facebook.com/group/20th Century Boy. Get into it. And Radio Lucas Coombe said, some dude made a Kickstarter to make a potato salad. Why didn't they approve you? And he did send me a link to a Kickstarter page by some guy whose name is Zach Danger Brown, who had over 6,000 people raise over $55,000 for him to create a potato salad.
When we set out to make a potato salad, we couldn't say yes to every ingredient.
And we didn't get approved. Really interested. Radio superstar Pat said, I'd say try Indiegogo or GoFundMe. If not, maybe start a PayPal so people can send their donations directly to you. Radio Paris said, just give us your account number and BSB, we'll sort it. And Radio Luke Matthews also said, just make a PayPal and we'll donate. I got $20 for the great cause. I also got an Instagram DM from Radio All of Maccas who said, I've been in Europe for the last 5 weeks and I'm catching up on all the episodes. Are you still raising money for 1-800-GET-FUCKED? And I said, yep, update this week. He said, how much money are you up to? So it seems like people are still interested in donating. So here's what we're going to do. After I put this podcast out, I'm going to create a PayPal account that you can donate as much or as little money as you want into it if you choose. And if we don't raise the right amount of money that we need for this, I'll refund all the money. So just keep a log of the amount. I'll keep a log of the amount everyone's donated if you choose to donate. You can donate $1. That's fine. Maybe do $1.50 just because the PayPal takes a cut of all the money you receive. I'm not trying to scam anyone. I just want to see how much money we can raise. If we can raise $335 for this phone number, that'd be fantastic. We really want to get that. So I'll create a PayPal. I'll link it in the group and I'll post it. And hopefully we can get some money coming in to purchase this phone number. That is the current update on this situation. I also got a suggestion. I think it was Radio Superstar Paulo, but I could be incorrect. So sorry if it wasn't you and whoever it was. But he said if we can't, we can just get a generic number from Radio Whitey. It will be like 1-800-294-294 or whatever it is. And then we can have a competition to see who can create a word out of that is the funniest for that number to be. But that's something we can explore if we don't reach the amount of funds. If we don't reach the exact amount of funds and people are still happy to donate, maybe we can brainstorm something we can pay for as a podcast together. Maybe we could do something like that. But yeah, last week on the podcast, we featured a brand new segment which was called Bat Stories. Now, Bat Stories was a spin-off segment of the segment Bird Stories, which was also a segment that was based on a one-off comment that I made on the Luke and Lewis podcast when I appeared on their podcast on episode 7. Bat Stories was an overwhelming success when my friend from high school, Radio Chiller, came on to tell a story in which we were forced to sleep in a hall on a music camp because we got in trouble. And that hall was infested by a rogue, probably diseased bat, and it horrified us and traumatized us for years to come. Because of that, I got thinking, and I decided I want to start a brand new segment on this podcast. And the reason I want to do this is because Radio Chiller was such a great addition to the show, and I realized that there are so many great stories that happened from my high school, which is why I want to start a new segment called this. Stupid shit that happened at my high school. Yeah, it's stupid shit that happened at my high school. And the premise of this segment is there are just so many fucking high school is such a microcosm society. High school doesn't function the way society is supposed to function. So crazy shit just sometimes happens. And I want not just, first of all, I want, if you went to high school with me, and I know there's a few people from high school that occasionally reach out to me and they're like, oh, I checked out your podcast, it was really good, it was really funny. People that I haven't spoken to since school. So if you're one of those people, if you went to high school with me and you have a story involving me or a funny story that I was a part of and you were a part of, email in I'll get you on the phone. We'll tell the story in this segment. Today's story comes again from Radio Chiller because we realised after we finished telling the Bat story, there was another story involving a long-lasting scar and a lot of blood that involved us both that we really wanted to tell on the podcast. So, Radio Chiller, thank you for being part of the inaugural version of Stupid Shit that happened at my school. And also, Radio Family, you can write in stuff as well, stupid shit that happened at your school. If you didn't go to school with me, you can still write in your high school stories. But if you went to my high school and we haven't spoken for a while, don't be scared to write in. I'd love to hear from you. I know there's a few of you listening, which is great. So, Radio Chiller, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. 2 in a row. There you go.
I know, it's crazy. No one else has had 2 episodes in a row in terms of guest appearances, so it must be an honour for you.
It definitely is.
You reminded me of this story that happened, and it must have been the same year as the Bat incident.
I think it was the same year. Similar context, because it was a music class this time, and similar teacher. Well, same teacher, in fact.
It was the same teacher, yeah. Yeah, so do you want to... how do you want to go about this? Can I start this one?
Go ahead.
So, from memory, both you and I, in terms of, skill and understanding of, music theory, we were both probably the top of the class. Would you agree with that?
I'd say that's pretty accurate. You're the only one who had a scholarship out of us, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit better than you, mate.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
We would sort of sit at the back of this music class and we'd always just fuck around because we knew that we were sort of the best in the class.
Yeah, because it was kind of designed for, anyone could do the class.
Yeah, but we had been learning instruments for, 3 or 4 years. Yeah. We had a history of music, so we sort of knew a lot about music already. And we knew we were probably going to be the top of the class in the exam at the end of the year. Yeah,
for sure.
No doubt in our mind. So we would just fuck around every class. I realise in this situation, there's no Bat. I was in the wrong.
Well, it's interesting because, again, it's kind of a bit fuzzy, the events leading up to the critical moment. But I think what was happening was, I think you were trying to draw on me just to kind of annoy me. So I think you had a pen just trying to draw on me.
So I was trying to draw on you, which just sounds like such a classic me thing to do at school. I was just I think I was flicking a texter at you and just trying to stab you in the face with a texter. So it just you just got black ink on your face or something. And you were getting really pissed off because maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you elbowed me in the back and it really hurt. Am I conflating that with another memory? I
don't know.
I think that happened. And then so what happened was you were holding a pen.
Yeah.
And like you said, I was trying to grab the pen off you.
Yeah.
And then I pulled it so hard in your hand. And then do you want to finish it?
And so what resulted was an open wound, basically. You sliced me. You sliced my hand, my palm.
So I ripped open your skin with your pen.
So you've literally stabbed a fellow student in the class, and no one else is yet aware of what's happening, but blood is coming out. And you are starting to freak out because you're like, holy shit, the teacher's going to see. And then you start going Mark, wipe it on my jumper, wipe it on my jumper. I'm like, I don't want to wipe it on your jumper. Your mum probably paid good money for that, but you've grabbed my hand and you're starting to make me wipe my blood on you.
We were trying to keep it as covert as possible. A lesson is occurring. There is a teacher at the front of the class, probably starting to realise there's some commotion going on. And we can't, ask for tissues or, I didn't want to tell the teacher because I didn't want to, get a detention for stabbing a classmate.
You had a clean record at this stage, I reckon. You didn't want to ruin it.
So I'm trying to wipe all the blood off on my jumper just to clear the evidence. And then I say to you, mate, please don't tell any teachers. Do you remember that? I was, begging you, don't tell anyone. And then I was and I think you said to me, yeah, but I'm going to have to, get at least a Band-Aid. I'm going to have to do something.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, just go to sickbay and say you fell over or something like that.
Yeah, so that's what I had to do. I had to go to the sickbay, get a Band-Aid. When I was on my way back to class, I kind of got pulled aside by the year level coordinator. I don't know why he pulled me aside, if it was because I'd told the nurse at the sick bay or whatever what had happened, or the sick bay nurse had just kind of reported to him that Mark was bleeding and came to me for a Band-Aid. I don't know, but he pulled me aside and asked what had gone on. I'm going to say I can't remember what I said. I hope I didn't... Did I throw you under the bus? Like, did you get in trouble?
I was in French class and the year level coordinator opened the door and just said my name.
Oh, God.
He was like, Radio Mike, please?
Oh, man.
And I was like, oh, fuck, what have I done?
Fucked you over.
And I knew what I'd done, but I didn't know how it was possible that he found out because we covered all the evidence so well.
I know.
He takes me outside and he looks at me and says, I remember this vividly, I'll never forget these words. He goes, I want to know how your pen can tear open one of your classmates' flesh. And I was like, yeah, it's a good question. And I just said to him, like, oh, it kind of just like, I was just reaching for the pen and it kind of just slipped out of his hand and he was moving his hand at the same time and it just sort of cut it a bit. But I didn't get a detention or anything like that. So I think we did pretty well.
Pretty good outcome. But you know what? And this is true. I still have a faint scar on my palm to this day. From the pen incident. A constant reminder of what happened.
That's the cost of studying music at school. You get forced to sleep in a hall with a bat and your palm gets ripped open.
Yep. So thanks for that one.
No, thank you. I had a blast.
Cheers, Radio Mike.
There you have it, guys. That's what happened. That's a stupid thing that happened at my high school. Send them in. We'd love to hear from you. And all the socials are in the description of the podcast. Oh, Mike, before we go on, can I do a stupid shit that happened at my high school? Well, no, because this week's one was from Radio Chiller. Maybe you can submit it via email and we might get you on another. No, mate. No. This is the fuck. So, I'm fucking at high school. I'm just playing footy on the oval with the boys. I was probably one of the hottest guys at the school. Like, I was just fucking... Like, I had a six-pack and I was just fucking hot. And this chick from school, Stephanie, she just came up to me on the oval and she just got... I'm not even fucking joking. This is fucked up. So you're like, we don't want this. We need to move on with the... No, just let me finish. She just comes up to me on the oval. She looks at me and she just goes, hey, Ciggy Mike, you, me, behind the sports shed, now. And I'm just like, fuck, this is fuck. She's like the hottest chick in school. I'm the hottest guy in school. And I'm just like, fuck, can't believe this shit. I'm like, if we get caught, we're fucked. But then I actually thought to myself, like now, I actually thought, you know what, Ciggy Mike? Life's too fucking short. Life's just too fucking short. And I go with her behind the sports shed and I'm just fingering her. I'm just going at it, fingering her behind the sports shed. It's like the best day of my life. Best to this day, best day of my teenage life. Best day. And then I'm just fucking going out at finger bashing her. And then Mr. Calamaris comes around behind the sports shed, sees us, and he starts walking towards us. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, we're just fucked. We're expelled. This is the end of my school and career. I was thinking of dropping out in year 10 anyway. And then Mr. Calamaris just fucking comes up to us and no shit, no joking, he just comes up to me and he just goes, oi, Ciggy Mike, you got a ciggy? And I'm just like, yeah, I got a ciggy. Take a ciggy out of my pocket, give it to him. He walks off, he doesn't say anything else. Fucking got away with it. Thanks, Ciggy Mike. That was a really fucked up story that I wish you didn't tell on the podcast, and we 99% will cut it out unless we really need to put it in for time. So thanks so much for sharing, mate. No worries, I got heaps of them. Guys, a number of weeks ago we launched a new segment on the show, and I got brunch with a friend recently who listens to this podcast because he's a great friend. We caught up because he's moving to the USA for indefinitely, and he said to me, first he pulled out a pack of cigarettes because he's a smoker, and the first thing he says was, you want a ciggy? To which I said no. And then he told me that Red Carpet Catastrophe was his favourite segment, and that's the segment that we're going to do today because we had a very, very lovely contribution on Twitter, which I would like to read right after we play the open of the segment here. 20th Century Boys Red Carpet Catastrophe! So just as a little refresher for Red Carpet Catastrophe, it is a segment about movies that were universally panned and negatively received by critics, right? But you watched them and thought they were an incredible film. It all started when I watched the Tim Burton 2019 Dumbo Disney remake and thought it was an incredible film that I would watch again at any time, but it was a critically panned film that a lot of people hated. Then, I think it was a guy called Radio Gateway. Radio Gateway, welcome to the radio family again. He submitted that he watched the Angry Birds movie and referred to it as a laugh-a-minute masterpiece. So I decided I was going to watch the Angry Birds movie and judge for myself whether it is a laugh-a-minute masterpiece. And I realised that no, it was not a laugh-a-minute masterpiece. It wasn't even a laugh-an-hour masterpiece, and it wasn't good. So that movie was a red carpet catastrophe, even though Radio Gateway liked it. Now, one's come in from Radio Brody Henry over on Twitter. Welcome to the radio family, Radio Brody Henry, and take 25 Mike points for this. And he says, so, just listen to my first Radio Mike podcast. It was episode 31. Wanted to get this in while I go back and listen to the rest, but my red carpet catastrophe is Land of the Lost, which has a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 26%. And he's also linked the poster for the film. And the poster for the film consists of a picture of Will Ferrell, who seems to be the main character, Nick Offerman seems to be maybe the villain who's on the left, and a woman who I don't recognize on the right. In the background is the title of the film, Land of the Lost, and a T-Rex, a big T-Rex. It looks like maybe some kind of Jurassic Park spoof, King Kong kind of comedy adventure film, maybe. But I have never heard of this film and I don't recognize it at all. So I assume it was a failure. I'm just heading to the Wikipedia page of it now. It's a 2009 American adventure comedy film. It grossed $68.8 million at the box office after a $100 million budget, which classifies it as a box office bomb. Will Ferrell, Anna Friel, and... Oh, it's not Nick Offerman. I could have sworn it was Nick Offerman on the front cover. No, it's Danny McBride. Oh shit, it looks a lot like Nick Offerman, but apparently it's not. Nick Offerman is the guy from Parks and Recreation with the moustache. Apparently it's based on a TV show from the 70s, which probably explains why it's so shit. So, in the next week, I am going to be watching Land of the Lost. I assume it's not going to be on any streaming service because I don't think anyone's fighting for the rights to stream Land of the Lost. So I'm probably just going to get it this... I'm probably just going to pirate it. I don't think anyone's going to care about that because I think it's a film that everyone involved wants to forget. But I reckon you guys, if you can get your hands on a copy of Land of the Lost, watch it this week sometime, and next week I'll have my review. You guys send your feedback via text or via voice message, and I'll feature that on the show. And I think that's a great way we can run Red Carpet Catastrophe. So we all watch these shit movies together, and we all decide together with our own feedback what we thought of them. If that's something that interests you, I'd love to have you on board. But my review of Land of the Lost next week on Red Carpet Catastrophe. So moving on very quickly, and I'm conscious of time for this episode, but I had a really interesting email come in from Radio Sammy. Radio Sammy, welcome to the radio family. I believe this is your first contribution to the show. And we've been talking recently because in this podcast we have a segment called Harry Potter and the Boys, which is where I read my Harry Potter fanfiction from year 7. And recently, the character Professor Oak from the Pokemon series appeared in Harry Potter and the Boys. And Radio Whitey actually commented that Professor Oak was 47 years old in the original Pokemon games. He's also a grandfather, and I commented last week on the podcast that means he must have been quite a young grandfather. Here's a bit of audio from that. But I just thought that was quite young, considering in that game, his grandson is also a character, so he was a 47-year-old grandfather. Now, Radio Sammy sent me a message, and take 20 mic points for this, but I think he realised the mistake he made very quickly because this message really confused me when he sent it. He said, "Hey Mike, on the 20th Century Boy podcast, you were speaking about how Professor Oak would have been a young grandfather, which I agreed. He'd have to have had a kid at 18 and his daughter also had to have had a kid at 18 or 19. Then he says, assuming daughter, because then Ash would presumably be Ash Oak, not Ash Ketchum, and prompted me to do some research. And then he says this, which I'm sure all of you are already thinking. Professor Oak is not Ash's grandfather. There actually is a lot of evidence to suggest he is actually banging Ash's mum, and a lot less evidence that he may be Ash's absent father who left to become a Pokemon trainer and never came back. Anyway, food for thought. And then I said, as I'm sure again you're all thinking, I said, no mate, Professor Oak is Gary Oak's grandfather, not Ash. You learn this in episode 1 of the Pokemon TV show, and within 5 minutes of playing the game, I'm mentioning this on the podcast. Thanks for listening. Sammy then replied, oh no, I thought that was weird. Now my mention is just going to be a massive fail. I wasn't into the show enough to remember Gary even existed. I wanted to get a mention on the podcast, but not like this. Still, what's with Professor Oak and Ash's mum? And it actually got me thinking about one of my favourite things about fiction and narrative and fandom and, you know, that all of those kinds of things, which is fan theories and fan-made kind of... Like, sometimes there are fan theories that fans commonly accept as the truth, even though they've never been explicitly stated by the creators, and I think that's called headcanon, where you're making your own canon of what the literature is. And Pokemon has a lot of these. For example, as Sammy said, a lot of people think that Professor Oak is... A lot of people think that in the anime, in the TV show especially, Professor Oak may be banging, or, well, he said banging, Professor Oak might be dating Ash's mum. And the reason for that is there's several episodes of the show in which Ash calls home, like on the phone, and Professor Oak is just at his mum's house with no explanation. I also believe there's an episode of the show in which Professor Oak and Ash's mum are on holidays together, but they never explain why they're on a holiday together, and it's kind of weird. Yeah, so it's really interesting. But there's a lot of theories from the games that I actually think are really, really fascinating, and I'll put this out there to the listeners. What are your favourite fan theories in fiction? For example, there's a recent one that a lot of people got around was this idea that apparently Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be, originally in the prequel Star Wars trilogy, Jar Jar was supposed to be the ultimate villain. He was supposed to be working with the Sith. But they scrapped that idea apparently because Jar Jar was so unpopular with viewers of the first movie. Stuff like that I find really, really interesting to pick out evidence for. One of my favourite runs from the Pokemon game is this idea that there's a Pokemon, it involves 3 Pokemon, Mewtwo, Mew, and then Ditto. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but it's a really, really interesting idea in Pokemon that basically Ditto, the Pokemon, is a amorphous blob. Like, it's almost like a blob of matter that can transform into any other Pokemon. And it's pink in colour. Ditto can be found in the video games. You can find wild Ditto in 2 places, which I'll get into later. But basically, Mew, the Pokemon, is sort of like, it's shaped like it's almost design-wise shaped like a fetus. And the idea of Mew is that it is the ancestor of every Pokemon. It is the common ancestor that every Pokemon evolved from over time. Mew is also pink, and Mew is sort of like the ancestor of all Pokemon. Scientists wanted to clone Mew to study it and learn more about it. And because Mew was so strong, they wanted to create a Mew that they could control for themselves, which is how they created Mewtwo. Now, I've discussed a lot on this podcast about Mewtwo as a character and how he is an existential icon, but I'm not talking about that today. Basically, there is a theory in Pokemon that Ditto, the Pokemon, are actually failed attempts at creating Mewtwo. And the reason for this is basically that in the games, you can go to this place called the Celadon Mansion. And in the Celadon Mansion, there are lots of like diary entries you can read, and this is all peripheral. You don't have to do any of this. It's all like sort of peripheral to the game to read these diaries. And the diaries explain that this is the mansion where they started experimenting on Mew. On Mew to clone a Mewtwo. In that mansion is one of only 2 places you can find Ditto in the game. So it's almost like all these Ditto are just living there because they were left there by the scientists after they created Mewtwo. The other place you can find Ditto is in the Cerulean Cave, which is also the place that Mewtwo hides out in the game. So basically, after Mewtwo escaped from the scientists, he goes out and hides in Cerulean Cave. That's the only other place you can find Ditto. It's almost like the Ditto followed Mewtwo there. There's other evidence to support this. Mew and Ditto are identical in color, so they're both pink with blue shiny forms. They both weigh the same amount, 8.8 pounds. Both of the Pokemon have a lot to do with DNA, and Mew being the history of all Pokemon, Ditto being able to transform into other Pokemon. And also, in Mewtwo's Pokédex entry, it explains that Mewtwo was the only successful clone of Mew, which means that there were more than one attempt. I find it really, really interesting that, it seems like that was a deliberate thing the creators of Pokemon put into the game, but never wanted to explicitly say it. But a lot of people accept it as the truth. And I personally think it must be, because, it's almost too uncanny in terms of evidence to not be true. The other one that I really like from Pokemon is this theory that in the games, you accidentally killed your rival's Raticate. I'm not sure if people have heard this, but it's a really good fan theory. Basically, in Pokemon, you have a rival, and you battle your rival throughout the game. Throughout the start of the game, he has a Rattata, which eventually becomes a Raticate, which is the evolution of Rattata. You then battle your rival on a boat called the SS Anne, and he obviously uses the Raticate. The next time you see your rival, he's standing in a place in the town, Lavender Town, in the Pokemon graveyard. He asks you about whether you know how it feels when one of your Pokemon dies. The next time you battle your rival, he doesn't have the Raticate anymore. A lot of people think that on that battle on the SS Anne, you hurt the Raticate so much, and because you were on a boat, he couldn't take it to get any medical attention, and it died. And the next time you see him, he's mourning the death of the Raticate that you killed in the battle. I genuinely believe this as well, and I find it really interesting that the Raticate disappears, because I don't think the Raticate gets replaced by any other Pokemon. Really, really chilling stuff, and I'd love to talk more about these. Send in Pokemon fan theories. I know there's tons more. There's some that say that Gengar is actually the shadow of Clefable. There's some that talk about how there was a massive war in the Pokemon world that destroyed and killed a lot of people. There's heaps. Any fiction that you like, there's a lot of Harry Potter ones. Some people say that Ron Weasley is actually Dumbledore traveling back in time to help Harry. There's so many. I'd love to hear what your favourite ones are. Let me know. We might not get to Harry Potter and the Boys this week, which is a shame because we're at a peak point and it's getting really exciting, but next week for sure. Love to hear back from you. Go and watch Land of the Lost or whatever that movie was called that Radio Brody sent in. Thank you so much for listening this week, guys. Ciggy Mike, such a great thing to have you back, man. It's really great to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Let's just see what happens with this whole Marianne thing. Let us know what you reckon we should do, but it's pretty fucked, don't you reckon?
It is so fucked. Intern Mike, thank you so much for being here. You back next week?
Yeah, I'll be back next week. Yeah, thanks for having me in.
Ciggy Mike, you're back next week, I hope?
Yeah, no, I'll be back. I just hope Editor Mike doesn't feel like he can't come in if I'm here.
Yeah, no, I'll have a chat to him like that. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you listening. I really appreciate all the contribution. You guys are the best. Get on the Facebook group for the link to the PayPal. I'm also putting out a new YouTube... Oh, very quickly, yeah. I'm also starting a new YouTube series. Speaking of Pokemon, I'm starting a new YouTube series which should be out very soon, either today or tomorrow, called Every Pokemon Ever. I'm reviewing every Pokemon ever, starting with the Pokemon Scyther, who, if you look into it very closely, is actually a murderous, rampaging killer. Go check it out on my YouTube. That's all from me. RadioMikePod@gmail.com. It's Radio Mike on Twitter. Radio.Mike on Instagram. And yeah, my name has been Radio Mike, and this is The Inside of My Mind, and this has been The Inside of My Mind, and this has been The Inside of My Mind. See you later.